Well, just like to say that Bernice and I met in person and compared all of our notes. We met for about 4 hours one day. Bernice has done the lion's share of this mapping. We put our heads together and shared different sources of information that we had, and then Bernice just took it, and ran. And I asked if Bernice would mind talking about this because she actually knows what's going on, and so thank you, Bernice, for doing all that work.
Well, and I want to give credit, Barbara, because both you and I went through the census information and ERC and different databases. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And I have to say, last week I had strep throat and laryngitis until 2 days ago, so you're lucky that I have a voice. But anyway, we went through all the databases, and it always confirms what zip code, what census block has the biggest needs. And even with our surveys that the coalition did, we know that where the need is. We knew that isolation and different social aspects were in high need in our area. And of course, the pandemic just intensified that. And that was really what last October was when we had the village network, the 3 days. And yes, I did not sit through all 8 hours times 3 days, but the amount of knowledge and information that was ascertained through that and how to seek your community resources was actually very inspiring. It was worth the $40 that I personally spent to, for those 40 hours. Honestly, if anybody has the chance even to just go and handpick what titles you like, it is well worth your time and energy and very few funds. But anyway, we went through all the different databases. It reassured us that we were in the right place at the right time, which is always nice to hear that you're forging ahead. And yes, our county is growing and growing in elderly population, and are quite, and more are coming. If you listen to the news, etc., and the latest census is affirming that fact. So people are choosing to come to Southwest Florida, Lee County in particular, and the services that are needed to support those people are going to be inadequate. I forwarded information to Abby only because I didn't know how else to get it to people. If you were here earlier, you know my IT skills are limited. But why I did that was there's a 13 pages at this point spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet is put together, and as a group we might have to meet personally and figure out how we want to regroup it, and it will always grow. No matter if I finish it at noon today, there's a new agency or a new nonprofit or a new service provider popping up and opening tomorrow. Great, because we need them. So this 13 pages will grow. I added the information Kim gave me. It's still color coordinated, only because I need to find out some of those websites or if they're duplicate. Abby will forward that off to people, but I wanted to make sure that we had that so that we know that we're growing and growing. And I don't know if you want to share that instead of us seeing each other, but even just one page of it. I did it, the Florida agencies that are available, and then alphabetically more or less what those agencies are, then just their website and just their telephone number. There's no explanation, there's no whatever. People can pick and choose. Then I do Lee Plus, which is a regional, because we have the United Way of Southwest Florida. or we have the senior book, which is more than one county. And then I'm going to what is lit. And then we see what's colorful, because some of the things that I'm working on, I'm not sure, one, if they're something that we want to have, that's not my decision. And if they're just Lee County, or they have to be bumped down further to what I consider local. Under local, we have police, non-emergency, emergency numbers, the fire departments, thanks to Kim. Whether it's rescuing a cat out in your tree or helping you because you fell, it feels as though those are the people who come and rescue you. So those are the locals, as well as fish are the different agencies that specifically target the Dunbar Neighborhood Association. It target a specific geographic area. We are going to try and mix the local ones, with zip codes. And I have some of that done, but Barbara and I have talked about this, and I honestly argue with myself, believe it or not, because I don't want to have us build an invisible fence that if I live in 33928, I don't go to 33967 or not 33901, etc., etc., etc. So that's still under consideration for this committee. And then beyond our local ones are those I have that are all of our United Way partners. And I really want to thank United Way, because they have truly helped. And when there were a few links, websites that didn't work, I of course let them know. But Danielle Brown, I guess she works in the evening, and she's a night owl, and I'm not. She would get things out to me late in the evening, and I'd find them at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that worked out exceptionally well. They've been a fabulous partner. I also have the national resources that are available, whether it's Medicare, to health.gov, to healthfinder.gov, but all of those that sometimes you can't find something locally and you need to either go to these websites, put your zip code in, or you call and they will help you. So I have almost all of their telephone numbers as well. Some do not have a way to contact them by telephone, which is unfortunate, because I think of my 90-year-old father, and he emails me only to respond to me with probably 15 words, and gets on the phone and can be on the phone for an hour and a half. So it's unfortunate, but many of the national and some statewide agencies do not have a telephone number. And the last portion of it is what was on myfloridamyfamily.com. And what I did was break it down by the topic of services. And some of these agencies are duplicated, kind of like how the Green Book is. And I want to thank Janet Bartos also, because her Green Book is always helpful to all of our staff here at CareerSource, but also just by the topics that My Florida, My Family, at one point someone questioned, baby food to baby supplies, when one of my dearest friends in my neighborhood is actually raising her granddaughter and, yes, great-granddaughter in her home. So those are supplies and different support groups, grandparents raising children. That still is something that people in my age group are battling and need resources for. So nothing was off the table. Let me put it that way. And we keep putting more on the table. And I'm not a librarian, and Barbara was, but I really didn't know how to. I did it by groups, And this might be something we organize differently. I have no ownership on how it's organized. This is just something that made sense to my chaotic thinking and how to start this process. I tried to keep it as simple as possible, because keeping things simple seems to work out really well for me, as well as I think most people.
Can I ask one thing?
Sure.
There's one other way you could set this chart up, and that would be to put another column behind column 4.
Okay.
Or maybe several columns, and that would be the different categories. And then you could just put an X, and then instead of listing them 10 times throughout the 500 lines, you'd only have to list them once, and then you would know which of the different resources that they work with, which of the different categories, like food, travel. Do you understand what I'm saying, Abigail? Yeah. So just an idea.
It's a great idea, but when you contact, I'm going to put down Department of Children and Family, whether it's Medicaid or support for our grandparents. I don't know how. Honestly, I'd love to sit down and have someone explain more to me, but that my brain doesn't work that well on that. And I did add that one of the last pages is all the people who are part of the coalition, and not their names, but who they represent. And there's more, because Barbara just forwarded even more names who have come to our different meetings. But, yes, I know the library system is part of our coalition, and we've had people from parks, etc. And yes, they're, if you above, yes, they're on this list. But, St. Vincent de Paul's, I found that they're also in there, but I don't know what Sandpiper Services is, and probably they are in part of this. But this is something where when we finally get to our coalition big meeting, is your agency represented here? Is your business, is your whomever? And if not, please forward information. And when we talked about it last meeting, just not, are you represented on this list? What 5, up to 10 agencies are we missing? Can you give me who they serve? Is it local, county, regional, state? What's their website, their overall website? And I don't have CareerSource Southwest Florida on there. It just dawned on me. How silly. That's me. And the telephone number. So obviously I know there are things missing, and there will always be things missing, but at least this is another avenue to add to our resources for anybody and everybody, whether it's soon to be our volunteers who might be helping, or, have you tried this agency? Or if it is our volunteers, maybe trying out this agency to help themselves with something that they're having issues with as well. So it's a bigger, broader resource guide, keeping it as simple as possible. But it's going to grow, and it needs to be reorganized, but I'm just not that person to do it.
I think.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I have add column. And again, if anyone on this call has more, I'm still working on some of the information from Kim from last week to make sure it's not duplicated, because I noticed that there are some duplication. But the fire one was perfect. Thank you so much, Kim.
You're welcome. Good job.
Thank you. We also have another piece of information. We have, I name this document every time I close it as a draft. And Barbara and I have had a lot of fun with this because it's either helpful intergenerational neighbors in paradise, or neighbors helping neighbors in paradise, or paradise neighborhood network. We name it every time, just because we figure sooner or later we'll find something that maybe the group will like also. But one, it's fun, and two, I know what we've been doing lately because of how I changed the name. Abby sent out something that I've watched afterwards about the intergenerational, and I have that as one of the handouts also. It's where if you look at, hold on, where am I? The VTV presentation. These are also other resources. The first one that says daily emails. This is something from the network where someone or some people pose questions on how to run or how to facilitate the village system. And this is Monday through Friday. And whether it's mandated COVID testing and cards to audits, you name the subject, they review it. And it's nice because it's somewhat comforting, because I find out that all the questions we pose have been posed 100 times on this concept, on this general national question system. We also post like the village movement, that's California. I know that Barbara attended that, so she can speak to that. And at the bottom of it, there's also a monthly meeting. The monthly meeting, honestly, it kind of reminds me of my dad. And I have to laugh, I kick myself off, because it's a bunch of people all talking at each other and no one listening. So it's elderly, just like us, everybody trying to get their opinion in. So it does cheer me to listen to this helpful user group once a month discussing, a topic or several topics. So, and the last is the intergenerational initiative video, the Co-Generate, which was heartwarming and enlightening. And I think one of the resources that Barbara and I talked about, whether it's Florida Southwestern and FGCU and their social work and their different departments, having them have experience with all of us. I know that high schools, they need community service, but we're not a registered nonprofit, we're a coalition, so I'm not sure how that would work. But there are ways to co-generate and be able to help each other, either helping them understand getting older, or us helping, or they helping us with whether it's IT or setting up an access spreadsheet or book or whatever. So many things, but this was, Abby sent this out and it was absolutely delightful. So if you have a chance, watch it. So that's it for me with resources. Well, I do want Barbara to talk about the California initiative, please.
Okay, well, the last 2 weeks, I've had one thing right after another that has shifted my thinking or clarified it a little bit more. When we first started and we went to the last gathering, one of the important messages at the end was the Reimagining Initiative. And Deborah Govro, who's on this call, had contacted Joel Shapira, who was on the board of the national network. And I've had a number of conversations with both Deborah and Joel. The Village Movement California, which is a group of villages in California, and then a large hub and spoke village in Colorado. And the question that it perplexes everyone is how we're going to make this a village sustainable. So we are coming on board at a time when all of these villagers are questioning how in the world we're going to be sustainable. And, a lot of them have given up growing. They just want to survive. And in the country, there are 40,000 village members. Well, compare that to this population that could be served, and you realize that even though the villages are spread across the US, they're struggling with finding ways to be sustainable. So that's one thing to keep in mind, and we are attending all those meetings of the Reimagining Initiative that come up that is appropriate for us to attend. So then I went to the California Village Movement California conference last week, and that one was all about reimagining villages. And I will just tell you this, and I can do a presentation later on this, but their topic was building communities of belonging. And there were presentations, a very important one on ageism and how to make a case for support without drawing attention to, a narrative that just doesn't work when we talk about aging. Whether it's pitting us against education for funding, or whether it's just out and out using ageist phrases that we don't think about. When we talk about the silver tsunami, we were kind of, that whole thought is just such a negative way to present what is happening, as some huge disaster. And then there was a discussion about not telling sad senior stories. So that there's a group called Frameworks Institute, and it's I'll send these slides actually to you. And they have a whole section on aging and reframing aging. So I'm kind of thinking about this and just thinking, gosh, I mean, how do you have a community of belonging and be really careful about how you're framing and how you're making a case for getting funds? And running through my mind through the whole conference was, why is Florida so different from California, in that California has so many robust villages? And I'm still puzzling through that. We had affinity groups. This is where we were talking about, again, building communities of belonging. There was a presentation called Waking Up White, and it's Debbie Irving. If you go to YouTube, you'll find a bunch of her videos. And we broke into groups and talked about either our whiteness or what it meant to us, how we identified ourselves. And then there was an affinity group for people of color. And that was an interesting thing. I thought that would be really good for us to do sometime. There were a couple of other presentations, but the one that I really went there for, I got so much more out of it than this, was reimagining sponsorship and financial sustainability. And it just so happened that the collaboratory presentation was at the exact same time. So I had one Zoom going on with collaboratory, and then one Zoom going on with the village movement, and took notes between the two. I couldn't miss either one of them. And the person who gave the presentation on financial sustainability is the executive director that was recruited for Pasadena Village. And she had a slide up on how to diversify your funding base. And I think it would be excellent to have her come and talk with us sometime. She was not in the area of social work, social services, gerontology, anything. They recruited her for her fundraising skills with the Philharmonic there. And so she had a number of suggestions on getting a larger number of small contributors as a way to, keep your client base kind of going and getting sponsors. by staying connected to them. And that was, I mean, I'll send you the slides. I can go over any of it at any time. But then I thought, well, what did I take away from this? And one is to really think about communities of belonging, be very careful and thoughtful about stereotypes and framing the benefits of a village that doesn't call to mind ageist stereotypes, and to incorporate Frameworks Institute recommendations to consider affinity groups. Then in the middle of all of that, collaboratory comes up, and that was just stunning. It was just fabulous. And the Sarah Owen, you know, introduces this as a total reorganization of her department, total renaming. And the idea is to have an 18-year deadline to, quote, coordinate the solving of all the region's problems on an 18-year deadline, which made me feel good because it's going to take that long. And she was talking about one problem with 100 entanglements that make it hard, if you're not working on a system-wide basis, to not compete with one another, but to look at it from a systems approach. And she has about 5 different divisions that are going to help her do that. And one is givers and giving department, one's explanation, one's entanglements, brainstorming, and nurturing department. And I do think we should talk with them about this as we proceed. The one area that was not mentioned in Sarah's presentation was aging population. And it doesn't surprise me. And I think we need to really consider this and think about, just where we want to proceed. Being the Aging Coalition and having this subcommittee means that we have more or less done the groundwork to fold in with what the collaboratory is doing and saying, well, we have been thinking about this and we do want to talk with you about this. So how this will all fit in with Village to Village Network, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows, but we want to be successful and we want to, as Sarah said, end suffering. And I thought that was an excellent thing to be thinking of at all times. That's why we're doing this. Then to top that off, I attended the Co-Generational Initiative meeting yesterday, and that was an hour or 2 hours. And, to be honest, I was thinking, I love young people. They bring a lot of things to the table and it's great and wonderful. But boy, the way they presented this is like, by the time I was finished watching that, I thought, how in the world could we proceed without being intergenerational? This is all a village after all. And I think that just to think that we don't have something to offer to the younger generation and that they don't have something to offer to us is ageist. So I think if you get a chance to watch that video, it really opened my eyes and took away some of my own preconceived notions. So I don't think we should do this in a vacuum. I still want to pursue exactly what we're doing and go right along this same path that we're going. I just want to fold in with what the collaboratory is doing, if at all possible, so that we're not still grinding away and trying to find funders a year from now, 2 years from now. And in light of that, I also would like to get another person or two to join our group to go to the gathering and to be as energized as we all were last year. I don't know if we're going to need to beat the bushes. I don't know. We could I could not hire, I don't mean that. We could find somebody who's a graduate student who's revved up about this, and I'll pay their way. I mean, all we need to do is just to get somebody who who is right for developing a passion or has a passion for this. And it's not going to hurt anybody to go to it. And there might be somebody sitting there right now who's just about to embark on a career that would just love to learn about this. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying I think we need to really get right in there with the collaboratory and be a part of a big community effort. And we would be, our group and the Aging Coalition would be the ones to inform that segment of this big 18-year goal. Thoughts and comments? Can't hear you.